right. Well, welcome back to Community Extras. Before we jump in, just want to say to your leader, thank you so much for hosting the group and facilitating the conversation. And just for you guys in community, I want you to realize, because I think a lot of times in the busyness of our schedules, we don't hear the stories as much as I get to hear the stories. But it's amazing to me the amount of times people will mention to me how their community group is where they really began to understand the gospel, or their community group is the thing that allowed them to jump into a Bible reading plan, or their community group is the place where that carried them through a really difficult season. And I know Sunday mornings are exciting and people come in and they're excited about what God's doing at the church, but really for a lot of folks where their faith gets real is what you're doing right now. This really is the backbone of our church. I always say the community group leaders are what carried Emergence Church through the pandemic, and just want to say thank you so much for your faithfulness. One of the things we've been talking about this year so far, since the beginning of 2022, is this concept of casting out our faith, sharing our faith. We're going to be people who weekly cast, and whether it's the smallest thing like giving a book or mentioning you went to church. And just want to share one cool story, because I've been getting some cool stories back of people who've been doing it, and hope you guys as a group are encouraging one another. How are we casting? How are we doing? Did you take a step of faith this week? Did you have an opportunity to share your faith? Cool one. I'm in a group with a guy who is in a Bible reading group plan. And he had mentioned this is a group of guys they're all reading the Bible together. Some are from Florida, Texas, California, a couple guys. And he, as they're kind of reading through the Bible together, he just shared with them, hey, I'm encouraged by this message on casting faith. And he passed it on to the guys in California, Texas, Florida. And he said he's been getting these cool stories back of guys who are like, oh my goodness, I've been casting my faith in California. I've been casting my faith in Texas, casting our faith in Florida. And it's just really cool to see that God is at work, not just here at Emergence, but through the ministry, through you guys, through your faithfulness. And it's going out into other states. And so I shared with you guys last week, I had this crazy reverse cast, had a cool conversation this week with someone. It's just been a lot of fun to walk around and go, where's an opportunity to share my faith? Where's an opportunity to make a connection? And hope you guys just spend a couple minutes tonight just sharing how that's gone so far for you. All right, Mixtape. Week number 2, we are in Song of Solomon. A couple weeks in Song of Solomon. Next week's going to be on conflict and working through conflict in marriage. I love that in God's wisdom, the book on marriage gets a week on conflict. That's pretty important. And so today we start really in the attraction dating season of the relationship. And what we find kind of fall out of the passage are a number of different tests, right? Because for the people in this book, the goal is never just to date or to be a serial dater. In fact, I'm a big fan of, if you're not really in a 3 or 4 window where you can get married, dating's just kind of a waste of time. And it's really interesting because what happens in this 3 or 4 years is this is a time in our singleness, and I believe that singleness is a great gift. Singleness is a high calling. We live in a day where more than 50% of adults are single. Song of Solomon is for you too. And one of the things that happens in singleness in our culture is it becomes all about dating. And then in marriage, we start to think about character, when in reality, it should be the opposite. We see the character test come out of this. And the character test is, if you're someone who's single, our concern should be running after God's kingdom. Our concern should be becoming the right person character-wise. So if that right person came along, then I'd be running the race for Christ. They'd be running, and we could lock arms, and if that's God's will, we could build the kingdom of God together. Character is what we should be developing. Character is what we should be focused on before marriage. And maybe just a good discussion tonight would be something along the lines of, where right now is God at work in my character? And then we see the dating thing come in this test, in this passage. And it's amazing to me because usually we think of dating as a process where we're dating someone, we get married, and then it stops, right? But really what we find is that we should start dating in our dating or courtship, and we never just want to be dating we want to be really intentional. I always say you're going to know you dated well and like honored God in your dating, honored the person you're dating. If it falls apart, they don't have to leave the church, right? If it falls apart, they don't have to go to a different service. You probably violated something in God's design if that happens. But the mistake we make for dating when we get married is that we stop. And I just hope those of you guys who are married tonight in our groups, that you are still dating your spouse. I hope and listen, I know there's budget implications and there's issues, but you can always go for a walk. You can always get a walk date. You can always get a coffee date. What should happen is there should be some time where the two of you are connecting and are getting out and are spending time together, and dating's a huge thing for that. And if you have kids, sometimes the temptation is you're going to go somewhere and they're going to want to come. And I'm going to tell you, one of the best things a young child, a teenager could understand is that the world does not revolve around them. You can say, no, we're going to your favorite restaurant and we are leaving you home. We are going on a date together. And then lastly, we saw this great picture in the text of the insecurity test. And the question for us that comes out of this is that ultimately, as great as marriage is as a gift, and singleness even is as a gift, the truth is marriage points to a greater relationship. Marriage points to a covenant relationship, and that is Christ. And though our marriage relationships are imperfect, our relationship with Christ is perfect. And maybe just how has marriage, or if you're single, the concept of marriage, how does it ultimately help you understand the love of Christ? And so hope you guys have a great discussion. Enjoy talking about casting. Enjoy talking about character and where God's at work developing you right now. And enjoy talking about how Christ ultimately is what marriage points to, and he's the one who does it perfectly. Lastly, if you're married, go on a date, all right? Hope you guys have a great discussion, and look forward to jumping in next week as we look at conflict. And so have a great discussion.
I'm Allie.
And I'm Joel.
And here's everything you need to know about what's going on at Emergence.
Yeah, last week we started up with community groups, and if you haven't been able to and last week we started up with community groups, and if you haven't been able to plug in, it's not too late. You can still plug in. You can visit the digital bulletin or even go to the Connect test in the back. Community groups are where we learn, grow, and connect and apply the truths of the Bible together. They really are the heartbeat of the church, and being a part of a community group has been such a blessing in my life, and I'm sure it will be for you. There are hundreds of community groups around our area. So yeah, if you want to find out more information about how to get plugged in, just go to the Connect desk or the digital bulletin to search and find a group that best fits for you.
This past week, we kicked off the How to Share Your Faith workshop. Pastor Ryan Bateswell has been teaching. We had our one this past week. There's 2 more, so it's not too late to hop on the boat. It's like, pulling out of the dock, but you can make the jump for sure. There's
kind
2
like
more.
Group.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Not too late.
Hop on in. It's this coming Monday at 7 p.m. in the Totowa Auditorium, and the next one is February 7th, so there's 2 more. The workshop is kind of like a class, really interactive, time to practice and develop some of the tools to effectively share Jesus with the people around you. So come on out, check it out this Monday.
Yeah. So also, Discover Emergence is there for anyone who's checking out Emergence for the first time. It happens the first Sunday of every month. So there is one coming up pretty soon, I think February 6th. So if you want to come and check it out, it's a place where you get to find out more about the church, like what we believe and how to plug in. It's also the first step of our membership process. And if you're interested in going to Discover Emergence, you can register in the digital bulletin by visiting news.emergencenj.org.
And we have been in the Mixtape sermon series, really nostalgic. Mm-hmm. When I think of cassette tapes, I picture my really old purple Saturn that had a cassette player in it, but I had no cassettes. But you could get this cool cassette that would go in and have this wire that I would just plug into
nice.
My iPod mini. Well, whatever your age, it's been a great series.
Yeah. And that's all we have for you for this week. Continue to love Jesus, love people, and plow counterculture. I didn't know if we were gonna be peace.